Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know which one will give you the corona.
You know what I've never found in a box of chocolates? A flux capacitor. Not even any of those 7,843 times with that cab driver on that moon in Alpha Centauri. Talk about psychedelic.
Yeah. Just not sure about that. I wear suspenders and drive a Porsche, okay? Box of chocolates is not exactly the right caliber for management. Oh, but it might be more Milton's speed. He opens all my mail and performs light janitorial and some pest control in the basement. HR tells me that since he was let go sometime before the iPhone 6 launched, that if he catches anything down there, things will just sort of work themselves out. I'm going to need you to just go ahead and trust what the experts tell us, okay?
Look, this is how you guys want to party. Maybe I can go read some user agreements for all these apps on my phones. You know, cocaine for a regular guy like me. Yeah, I gotta go. It might be contagious. The boredom of the living.
Oh, well, I think we'll need to pray about that and ask your father.
Shut up, Marilyn.
The Mark Roman Empire. Also, a podcast. This week's episode, Daniel Eachus. It's showtime.
Episode 34, dated the 27th of May, 2020. But it's almost June. Wow. It's kind of cool. Heading into the Leave It to Beaver time of the season of the summer about to start. Whatever. You know what? You know what I'm talking about, right? How was your week? Hey, did you see that video of that cop with his knee on the neck of that golden retriever? Yeah, that didn't happen. There was no golden retriever. It was a human being, a black human being. Yeah. So if you think there's no more racism left, just ask yourself how you reacted when you thought that a cop actually placed his knee on the neck of Lassie and choked to death a dog. How does that make you feel? Okay, that didn't happen. But an actual human being died because a policeman in the heartland, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, did that and killed a man. So just compare and contrast, you know? I mean, I don't know. Maybe racism survived the pandemic. It's a suggestion. Just thrown out. I could be wrong. I just want to know, how much longer does the NFL need to punish Colin Kaepernick for taking a knee? How many people died when Cap took a knee? I'm just asking. Just asking. Oh my God. And we call this civilization. Wow. I mean, if it pisses you off, there's stuff that you can do. So, and some of us are in a better position to do things than others. I mean, right now, as I speak, literally protesters with Black Lives Matter, which work closely with Ground Game LA, which is a wonderful organization that I support and has helped me and many others during the pandemic. They brought groceries to me. Black Lives Matter and other protesters, they shut down the 101 freeway right here in LA. As I'm recording this, it happened today because yesterday, episode 386 billion of the institutional racism against people who don't look like me, like a 6-foot white man. That's still going on. Still, I just don't get upset at me. Get upset at, I mean, there's elections. You can vote for people. You can know when there's like, continuing complaints over and over and over and over again about the same issue with the same people. Maybe look into it, read some new, pick up. I have a subscription even in my less than stellar financial state. I have a subscription to the Los Angeles Times. Are they the best? No. Are they perfect? No. Do they make mistakes? Yes. Do they need to be corrected? Yes. But it's my local journalism. So I do what I can to support it. You can too. So just saying, because, things are opening back up now. I guess the retail stores are starting to open up. But are we wearing masks? Are we doing that? Because I'm looking around and I'm wearing my mask and I know it's not an N95 mask. I get it's not completely effective, but it is a little effective, and it's really about the other people that might get sick who are more vulnerable than me. Because I know I got O negative blood. I know I'm probably in pretty good shape here, but it's like, I don't know. Thinking about someone else. Like, it's like the old Wall Street thing with Michael Douglas. Greed is good. I mean, I used to be on that team. I used to be a Republican. Hell, I went to college over politics. Loved Ronald Reagan. Actually spent time with William F. Buckley Jr. If you don't know who William F. Buckley Jr. is, you really are not entitled to have a serious political conversation, because he's a really important figure, and he's part of the history and the reason why things are the way they are today. So look into that, because I met the dude, and wow, I can just tell you, for people who look like me, a lot of shady shit goes on. I can't tell you how many times I'm like Scooby-Doo. I'm like, shady? I'm like, really? The things people will say, the things people think is okay. Yeah. And you wonder why I'm building an empire. Oh, things are opening up. Like, can you wear a mask? Just wear a mask. The sign says wear a mask. It's not that big a deal. Just wear a mask, okay? And the 6 feet, come on. You can at least do the 6 feet. Okay, I get it okay, look, for a second here, I'll go with you that your freedom's being infringed. I mean, people are literally getting killed in the streets by law enforcement. That's happening. But, apparently the urgent issue for some is, I have the freedom to not wear a mask and kill grandparents because I need to be free. Like, can you at least have 6 feet of social separation, of distance? Can you at least do that? Like, is that too much to ask? Like, I don't, how, it's like, it's true. It's like white people like me being inconvenienced. Apparently that's the high crime and misdemeanor that just cannot stand. Meanwhile, people are literally human beings are being killed in the streets again. And, as long as it wasn't your golden retriever, you're like, I guess that sucks for him. But hey, I got a stock portfolio, and I got a small business to run. I'm really concerned about it. Wow, what is this pandemic going to do to the economy? And just, what the fuck? Oh my God. Hey, at least Runyon opened today. And that makes me really happy. Today was the rush. I'm running a little late here on the podcast, guys. Hopefully this is going out on Wednesday. Probably is going to dribble into Thursday. But hopefully we'll be caught back up again next week. So I'm looking forward to hiking Runyon tomorrow. See how many, according to the news, it sounded like maybe 20 to 30% of the people on Runyon today actually have masks. So I will personally inspect tomorrow. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Mark. I'm mentally ill. How can I help? Now, when I started doing this a few episodes ago, the reaction I got from some people, and I kind of like ran it past them. They're like, "Ooh, it's a little like on the nose." Like, ooh, it's. I guess the best word to embrace how people feel when I say that, awkward. So, as I'm realizing that we're in the last few days of Mental Health Awareness Month, I thought, I should probably talk more about my mental health issues and also share, if you are struggling with yours, which a lot of people, a lot more are because of the pandemic. There's definitely help that's available. It's available online. It's also available if you got a phone. You can call 1-800-273-8255. It's free. It's the National Suicide Hotline. Suicide prevention hotline, I should say. And that's available. And I want to, let people know that. I've called that number more than once. I've been in the hospital, not once, not twice, but 3 times for suicide ideation. That's when you think, I can't take it anymore. Maybe I should take an exit. So I've done that. I've been through that. And there's nothing to be ashamed about that. If you're like paying attention to what's going on in this world, it's actually it's a sign of your health, except we say that you're mentally ill. And I just want to embrace the awkwardness of this. And apparently the Ad Council, that's right, the descendants of Don Draper, the Ad Council of all people, they've came up with seizetheawkward.org. Well, them and I guess a Suicide Prevention Foundation and some other folks. But I'm kind of the, well, you know what? We'll go into more of that here in a moment. But I do want to read this. This is straight off the seizetheawkward.org website. You can go there if you need some help. They say, and this is true, you are not alone and help is always available. Get immediate support 24/7. Reach out to the crisis text line by texting SEIZE, that's SEIZE, to 741-741, or, as I mentioned previously, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. It's free. And everything you tell them is confidential unless it's essential to contact emergency services to keep you or your friend safe. So let's go into my mental health a little more in a moment. Hey, did you like the cold open? My Patreon patrons, they get to listen to that early. That's right. It's one of the perks for my Patreon patrons. Mark Roman Empire is on Patreon now. It's kind of an alternative to advertising because let's not forget, I am a subversive. And I don't know, just the more I see what's going on. Yeah, I saw Joe Rogan went on to Spotify, which I mean, it's cool for him and it's cool for podcasting. It's cool for shaking up the game and kind of like letting YouTube know that like they're not the only game in town. But it's like, has anyone even used Spotify? It's like the worst app on your phone to listen to podcasts. Like I use Podcast Addict myself. And I've noticed that people that, are really into podcasts before podcasts became a thing, they usually use Podcast Addict. Just there's a lot of little, things that you come to expect and useful stuff if you listen to a lot of podcasts like I do. So Spotify has not a clue. Let's put it this way. Podcast Addict on a bad day is like the iPhone 11. And Spotify's their deal with delivering an app to listen to podcasts, it's like using an Atari computer, the very first Atari, as a computer. Not to play video games, but to try to send an old school email over a modem. Sorry, I can't do a Was that 14.4K or was that 28.8K? Yeah, Spotify, like, if you got the money to buy Joe Rogan, can you friggin' hire a software engineer and actually make an app that doesn't completely suck? I don't know. So see, this is why I can't do advertising, because I notice simple shit and I say it, and, I get kicked out of college. I get put on the FBI subversive list. I'm sure there's people screaming right now because they think I'm, a bleeding heart liberal commie, which, most of that sounds kind of cool. The commie part's a little personal. That's just because you know what time I'm from, and that hurts. But look, hey, did you watch Dr. Zhivago? I watched Dr. Zhivago. But did you read Dr. Zhivago? I haven't read it, no, but I watched it, and I feel the tension. I'm building an empire right here. That sounds pretty fucking capitalist, but at the same time, I don't know why anyone who has a W-2 job isn't belonging to a labor union. Like, if you're not agitating, and that's something we'll do. I was going to do this episode. We'll do it in some future episodes. I think I'm going to do a union a week, like meet a union, because there's some unions that you didn't even know about. Did you know Kickstarter is now unionized? Yeah, I didn't know that. It's crazy. So there's things where you're like, accountants don't need a union. Maybe they do. Software engineers don't need a union. Maybe they do. Just saying. Anyway, I got off on a tangent here because the whole advertising thing, I got to avoid it. I can see it already. I don't play well in that realm. I got to tell you where I'm coming from. I need to speak my truth. Okay. And if you guys will be coming out with some merch here, I know I keep talking about it. I'm adjusting the finances here because I want to get you guys some cool t-shirts. All right. But I want to get quality. All right. I don't want some crappy t-shirt. I want a good quality t-shirt, and I need to get a bunch of them. So we'll make it pencil out. We'll make it work out. That's down the road. But in the meantime, sign up for Patreon. We just got the citizen patron level right now. It's only $5 a month. $5 a month. That's like not even $1 a week. Come on. What's stopping you? Really? What is stopping you? Just become a patron on my Patreon. We'll come up with some other levels in the future here. Learn more at patreon.com/Mark Roman Empire. Hey, comedian Daniel Eachus is on the pod today. He's also an actor and a writer. He does a lot of commercials too. You've seen Daniel on Laughs on Hulu, or is it Fox? Or is it Hulu? Or is it Fox? I think it's both. He's on Laughs. You can also see him on DryBar Comedy. And I have a little chat with him about where DryBars originates from. So you'll have to listen for that in the interview. Oh, Kevin Hart. Have you heard that guy? I just started listening to, he was just on Joe Rogan. That guy is a machine. He's got, to talk about empire, Kevin Hart is an empire that he built himself. Man's amazing. Anyway, he's also got, part of his empire includes the LOL network. Daniel Eachus has been on that. In fact, I think he's writing for a show. Anyway, we'll talk more about Daniel here in a minute. Hero tier. It's not only a word I invented, it's also something we put into practice. Our current hero tier mission is to bring Venka and Will housing stability. They now have a home, get some Section 8 housing, but the hero tiers will continue to help them to keep it. They are cramped in their new space. There's a storage movement in progress, literally like in the last day or two. They've got physically and emotionally, they are just trying to recover from living in a car for over 1.5 years. Imagine living in a car for a week. You'd be a mess, right? Okay, well, imagine that week is there's 52, plus there's another, let's have 52, 26. 1.5 years of living in a car. How would you feel after that? Would you be feeling the exact same way you're feeling right now? Yeah, I wouldn't either. Okay. So there's a lot of lost mental, emotional, and psychological bandwidth that they're trying to recover. So now they got a safe place to do it, but it's going to take some time, and they still lack all the resources they need to heal. There's a lot of health issues too. So Hero Tears will continue to help them make sure they keep their home, and Vanka will let us know when she's back on her feet, because she's the one who knows when that moment is, what it looks like. So we trust her for that. Hey, we played cards for Hero Tears 12 on Monday, and Hero Tier Johnny D won a 77th Academy Awards program from Brett Davidson Creative. If that sounds familiar, that's because a Hero Tier previously won it, but then they chose to donate it. Yeah, Hero Tiers can do that and are kind of cool when they do, because that just makes us get more bang for the buck out of the Hero Tier program. Is it a program? Or is it a program? Program. Oh my God, I sound like my grandfather, my great-grandfather. My great-great-grandfather I never even met. I never met a great-grandparent. Grandparent, that's as old as it went. That's my story, okay? Next week's Cards for Hero Tears prize is a surprise prize. Follow Hero Tier on Instagram at HeroTiergram and discover what it's all about at herotier.org. Mental health awareness. It's an everyday thing. Yeah, not a month out of the year thing. Coming out of this pandemic, I realize I need to seize the awkward. I mean, the ad council can. I just, the irony. If you've never seen Bill Hicks' bit on marketing, it's just, you got to watch that. And then to realize now that, I'm imagining Don Draper. He's like a Don Draper. I'm just trying to imagine Don Draper asking me if I want to talk, and then do I have a plan to hurt myself? Like, imagine Don. I suppose for a lot of listeners, that would actually be a very calming thing to have Don Draper ask you almost anything about anything. But Don Draper is a fictional person, and the person you're imagining right now is actually John Hamm. He's an actor, and I believe he's married and happily so. So yeah, but I understand the imagination. Okay. So, bandwidth. That's kind of the big word that's been weighing on me this week as we're kind of coming out of the pandemic. Bandwidth. A lot of us lack it. And the pandemic kind of revealed that there's a lot of vulnerable groups and people that have very little bandwidth, whether that be financial or emotional or psychological or mental. And, it's great if you want to beat your chest, pound the drum and say, hey, we're this phenomenal nation. And, the top priority is positive thinking and, pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. Look, I grew up with that. I can preach that better than you heard it, because that's what I grew up in. I didn't do fun things like go to parties and learn how to drink and fool around with people that are sexually, attractive to me. I didn't do that crap. I read books. I got in my Eagle Scout. And I read a shit ton of National Review and the American Spectator. And if you don't know what National Review and the American Spectator is, well, again, you got to do some research, because if you want to be taken seriously about looking into politics, like those are some pretty key sources of information. This was slightly before TikTok, and definitely before. We talk a little bit. I do with Daniel about in the interview about sources of news, and he grew up on the Daily Show. And a lot of people that's where that's become the news for them. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We kind of go into a little bit, my little chat with Daniel Eachus, but yeah, it's an interesting time we are in, and there's a lot of things we just keep repeating. And one of the things we keep repeating is how we abhorrently treat those who have mental health issues, which, by the way, quite possibly all of us after the pandemic. But there's people that, there's some mental health issues that I will never have to deal with. Like, I'm never going to be driving a car. First of all, I don't drive anymore. It's a choice. But were I to drive a vehicle right now, I'm never going to look in the mirror and see flashing blue and red lights and go, oh, fuck, my life is in danger. I'm never going to feel that way because I'm going to be like, oh, fuck, did I speed? What's going to happen here? I've had speeding tickets. But I also remember a time when someone and my attorneys tell me that I should just say that, son, you hold your liquor well. I don't know what that means, but I guarantee you that if I had a different skin color, that's probably not how that line probably would not be the takeaway from that night. So I'm just saying there's different people have there's families right now that, someone just died, and it's not because of the coronavirus. It's because they had a certain skin color, and law enforcement in a major American city in 2020 did not protect that citizen. Instead, they killed that citizen without due process. So there's people that come back from war and they have what's called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. There are people who are raped as children, either from a Harvey Weinstein type, or from a church pastor or priest, or from dad. And these humans also have some type of post-traumatic stress disorder. And then there's me, because I have some financial bandwidth issues, and I get triggered back to when I was kicked out of college when I was 19, because I chose to publish a student newspaper and refused to kill it. And subsequently found myself on the FBI's subversive list, which means since the age of 19, I can never serve in the military, and I can never, if I wanted to become an engineer or somehow go into science, like my son is doing very well, but he chose chemistry. Had I chose engineering and wanted to go, say, work for Boeing, that was never an option for me because I am on the FBI subversive list. Yeah. Can I do a Freedom of Information Act request and look into that and fight that? Absolutely. But you know what? I've done enough for journalism in this lifetime. So maybe someone else who's curious and alleges to be a journalist. I mean, I'm a member of the Screen Actors Guild, and all the TV journalists that are union, they're in my guild. So I don't know if you're listening to this right now and you're SAG-AFTRA and you do the news, look into it. Maybe you have to let someone else look into it. I've done my thing. Okay. I made my sacrifice, but you know what? At the end of the day, I'm recovering, and I'm still alive. And there's people that are not, and there's the people that are left, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And they're asking themselves, hey, am I even safe to live in this country? Because I look a certain way. And it seems like the people in power, they don't think I have equal rights. They might say I have equal rights, but they don't treat me in a way like I have equal rights. So I can imagine someone who doesn't have a skin color like mine thinking that they're worthless based on how they notice our society treats people who look like them all the time. I just want you to know right now, if you're feeling that way, I felt that way, and I'm begging you, hang in there. All right. Like I said, we got the number you can call. It's been there for a while. 1-800-273-8255. Or if you like to text, you can text SEIZE, SEIZE, to 741-741. You can do this anytime, day or night. There's no bad time. There's people that do look like you and have been through the experiences you've been through. You just need to connect with them. And right now it might seem like they're unavailable and that you can't connect with them. You're going to be able to, okay? Just hang in there. You have a story to tell, and you have superpowers, heroic superpowers trapped inside of you. And I'm just begging you, hang in there. Hang in there, okay? Look, I know I'm a 6-foot white guy who looks a certain way. What the fuck do I know about struggle? It's a fair question. It's a really fair question. People in my position, even though I live below the poverty line, people based on my looks think I don't, but I've been living under the poverty line literally for the last decade. But we make judgments on appearances. So I've been able to work in Hollywood and work a lot of different roles. I've played successful business people. People are definitely like middle class, upper middle class, upper class. But that's not been my real life experience for the most part. I guess all I'm trying to say is that I've had mental health struggles. I continue to have mental health struggles. It comes from growing up religious, born again Christian, and really as an adult trying to be able to make logical choices that are healthy in my own life. And I found that growing up religious has really fucked with my ability to do that. Maybe you can overcome that. But, to have a very powerful college backed by a very powerful Republican, mostly white, mostly men, come down on me like a ton of bricks. I do know what that feels like. So if you've ever had a group of powerful white men, and a lot of them are Republicans, and they want your head on a platter, I have a sense of what that feels like. My head was never literally put on a platter. Some people's heads are literally like, there's a cop kneeling on it, and it doesn't end well. So, when we start comparing it, I don't know. There's always someone who has a more difficult situation. But that doesn't mean that the situation you're going through is any less important to you. And we are all human beings. We all have needs. We all need food, clothing, shelter. We need to have some, meaning and purpose in our life. We need to have the choices and the freedom, the ability to pursue that, to do that. And if we allege and claim to be this, social civilization of, people, that allegedly care about each other, well, then let's care about each other. And people that attempt to take their own life often are very intelligent, often are emotionally very evolved, often are very sensitive to what the fuck's actually going on. A lot of people that are trying to take their own life, they're witnessing trauma, they're experiencing trauma. And our civilization hasn't figured out how to process that at all. And so what this human being who's experienced this trauma does is they try to resolve it. They try to clear the books. And a lot of times that ends up to be, a tragic end. So as someone who has thought that way and felt like there was no hope, I'm telling you, there's hope. There's some cool people out there that will listen, that can help you get through now, today, tonight, tomorrow. They don't have a magic wand, but they can help you catch your breath. and get connected with resources that maybe can help. And just keep pushing. All right? Reach out. If you're struggling right now, you're absolutely not alone. You're a human being who's awake and noticing that we live in a really fucked up world. And there are people that continue to do really fucked up things. And, it can be punishing. It can be hard to have to endure all of that. But if you can survive that, there's a lot of people dependent on you. It may not feel that way right now, but there's actually a lot of people that need to hear from you, and their lives will become so much better because you are around to share a little bit of your story. Because your story does matter. It's not silly. It's very important. Your life is very important. Even if maybe the crowd you're around at the moment might make you think otherwise. Hang in there. Just, call this number, 1-800-273-8255, or text SEIZE, SEIZE, to 741-741. We're going to get through this together. I mean, we are ants on a little marble, flying through space. It's just crazy. What's going on? But just hang in there. Hang in there. There's some cool people that are going to get you. You just got it. You got to meet them. They want to meet you. So hang in there. So whoever's listening right now, I don't know if this helps you at all. Just know that I'm someone that was ready to end it all on more than one occasion. And in my brain, I felt like I had really good reasons. And now looking back, I'm like, yeah, there's still really good reasons. They make a lot of sense. But I got a son. What am I going to tell him? All right. I've got people listening to this podcast. I got to put out this podcast each week, I still got to get back on stage when we can actually do stuff on stages again. I got some things to do. So what are your things to do? What would you like to do? No, not what's practical. What do you want to do? Time's no object. Money's no object. You don't have to worry about anything. What would you like to do right the fuck now? Have you ever asked yourself that question? This is a good time to ask that question. There's a lot of people asking themselves that question. There's going to be a lot of changes coming because, when wars happen, when Great Depressions happen, there's massive change because it's a reset. All the lies we've been telling ourselves about how everything's perfect. Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, we're living our best lives right now. No, you're not. You're doing some fucked up shit. Other people are doing some fucked up shit. There's a lot of pain and suffering going on. So there's going to be a lot of changes. And I hope some of those changes will be positive ones. But I'm encouraged by some of the things that I see. Anyway, I hope this helps you. If you're not struggling with any mental health issues, maybe ask yourself who in your life might be, and maybe, figure out how you can become a little more aware of their world, because it might not make sense to you, at the beginning. The old expression, walk a few miles in one's moccasins, right? Try it out. Hey, Lieutenant Frank has done 40 personalized short videos on the celebrity shout-out platform Cameo. You can roast your friends. Surprise that person for whom you can never find the right gift. Of course, you can also deliver a unique happy birthday message as well, or whatever. Have some fun with it, It's your Cameo to do. And it's only $10 if you want it from Lieutenant Frank. So hurry and get a few cameos from Lieutenant Frank before the price increases, and it will. cameo.com/Vegas90210. Daniel Eachus. You know, anytime I see the name Daniel, I always imagine I'm Saul Bloom in Ocean's 11, because he looks at George Clooney, who's Danny Ocean. He never says Danny. He says Daniel. Daniel. I can't do Saul Bloom. Anyway, Carl Reiner. What a legend. Daniel Eachus is working on becoming a legend. He's early days, but he's done a lot of cool stuff. If you take a peek at, he's been on Laughs on Fox and Hulu. He's starred in 13 national television commercials. Did I mention he's a co-writer on a brand new Kevin Hart produced series? Yeah. And most importantly, he escaped Fresno. How do you do that? I don't know. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? We go into it. I hope you walk away from this interview realizing that you can listen to Daniel's stand-up album, Carry the Pillows, on Sirius XM, which I believe they are doing free right now. Spotify. I mean, if you got to do Spotify, he's on Spotify. iTunes and Pandora. That's Carry the Pillows. You can also watch him on his DryBar comedy special, A Mild and Skinny Guy, available now. Let's have a chat with Daniel Eachus. We had a cool conversation. I think you'll dig it. And we've been doing a lot of actors lately, musicians, and I've been hearing the calls and the clamor, the uproar, the people who have spoken. He said, Mark, I want more funny people. I'm giving you a funny person. Let's talk to Daniel Eachus. Daniel, now I can't pronounce your last name. Damn it. This is probably the first time this has ever happened, right? How do we pronounce your last name?
It's all right. Everybody gets it wrong. It's Eachus.
Oh, Eachus. So it's simpler than it, because my first hot take was like Eachus,
right.
Eachus.
Anytime two vowels are together, people are like, what is going on? Like, what is this?
Right? It confuses us.
Right.
Well, Daniel, I'm glad we finally got you on here, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, when we first met, I was actually living and working in Las Vegas. This is maybe half a decade ago. And I believe I saw you perform at the World Series of Comedy. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I'm like really bad at dates with that stuff. I know people who are like, oh, my favorite concert of all time, August 8th, 1984. I'm just like, dude, how do you do that? I can't. I'm not one of those people.
I ate a ham sandwich with provolone, but the cheese was about to turn bad,
right.
But in the good way. It was just right, perfect. And, it was a vernal equinox, and, Saturn was seeing its shadow. And you're like, who the fuck are you?
Right. Yeah, I am not one of those people at all. So it was roughly something like that 5 years ago, 6 years ago, somewhere in that time range.
Anyway, well, I think, I don't know how you feel about this, being a professional stand-up comedian and writer and actor, but I take it that the number one thing you like to think of yourself as is a stand-up comic. Is that a fair?
Well, number one is a son, and then two is...
Oh, let's not forget that. Yeah. All right, what's that all about? Right? Is that because it's funny? It's funny, but like I don't know. It's just
it's just a joke.
Because you don't look like you're about to be a linebacker drafted by the NFL.
Looks can be deceiving, though.
This is true. You could have some bionic parts,
right.
Hidden there.
My arms are made of metal, but no, stand up first. I mean, stand up in the sense that I guess that's where I make the bulk of money and time and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Okay. Because I first met you, my impression is seeing you perform live on stage in front of an audience, which is
never thought I'd have to say this. Something we have to look back on and remember because we don't do that anymore at the moment, right?
Right.
So how do you feel about that being someone's first perception of you is you performing live on stage as opposed to, meeting you in real life outside of the stage?
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's definitely different. I mean, especially because you are a different person on stage. The way I always describe it, and I can't speak for all comics, but I think for the most part on stage, you're the person that you want to be.
Yeah, it's idealized, right?
Yeah,
it's theatrical, but it's
right. You're definitely a caricature. You're definitely an extreme of whatever. And different comics pick different extremes. Maybe they pick their cooler side or their dorkier side or whatever it is. But they pick an extreme and they're like, let's go with that. And so it is different. Meeting people that way, they expect you to be that all the time, whatever that is. And
first impression sets it.
Yeah, I think I'm a lot quieter in person or maybe a more introverted in person. Not that I'm, insanely wild or anything on stage, but, definitely there's a lot of confidence that comes into doing stand-up on stage, even for the people who have a character that's kind of shy or whatever. So it's different. Yeah, I don't think I'm that confident in real life.
Interesting. I've heard this in person and also hearing interviews, that I'm not personally involved with. Different people that have a stage presence, whether they be in music or comedy or an actor. And it's interesting how many people, more than you might think, are really introverts. And yet they take on this thing that most people say they fear worse than death, public speaking. And not just any public speaking either,
Right.
Public speaking with stakes and there's expectations, So what do you think that is? Like what for you, what got you on? Because you've been doing stand-up basically your entire adult life, right?
Yeah, it's been 11 years now. It's crazy. And I'm 14. So you can do the math there. That's
I was going to say 12, but I'm glad you said 14. It made it less awkward because
I am bad with years, so I could be 12. I'm not sure. I don't.
You literally, technically, theoretically, could be my grandson, maybe great grandson. So it just we can see each other's hands. It's all good. It's all good. The doors are open.
Right, but yeah, it's. You do see a lot of introverts. I guess in comedy, a lot of art forms, because it's a lot of taking things in and then, spewing them out within your lens at night on stage or wherever that is.
Right.
And you got to do the taking in part in daily life. And I think that just makes you sort of a quieter person, because you're trying to use all your other senses. You're observing.
Yeah. Interesting. And it's a solo sport. I mean, you as a stand-up comic, you have this insane, breadth of tasks and choices and options because you're the writer, you're the director, you're the producer, you're the talent, you're everything, and you get to make all these decisions. You don't have to consult with anyone. You're just it's you. You can do whatever the fuck you want, and you gotta. I imagine. If you're not accustomed to team sports, that's something that can feel very comfortable for someone who's more solo in real life.
Yeah, and it's got its pluses and minuses. You're like, oh, cool, freedom. I can do whatever I want. I can say whatever I want. I can, I'm not getting pulled in different directions artistically or whatever. But also, that's too much freedom can be dangerous and
really.
Also hard to deal with sometimes because you're like, man, I can say whatever I want on stage. Should I say that thing?
Yeah, the responsibility, because it's like, hey, especially these days with Twitter, and we have such great examples in our leadership,
right.
Show guide the way, carrying carrying liberty's torch on how to use freedom in the best way possible to inspire the rest of humanity. Yeah,
exactly. I can't think of who you're talking about, but yeah, I get it.
Theoretically, I'm at a loss for any real life examples. Just theoretically, in an alternate universe.
Right.
Now, how do you feel about that? Because the elephant in the room. It's funny. I was just watching Patton Oswalt's special on Netflix, and he just addresses it head on. He says, "Look, I have no Trump material. He had like a little bit, but not really." And he's like everybody's already doing it. We're kind of tired of it, and it's just not my thing. And I've kind of leaned that way myself. How do you feel about that?
So it's kind of it's all of our fault. I mean, it's the time,
right.
It's the times that we're in right now. So I've never said this out loud, so I don't know if any of this is going to make sense. But there was a time.
That's an exclusive, listeners. Did you hear that? You're hearing this for the first time from Daniel Eachus right now.
Yeah. So there was a time not that long ago where you could go up on stage and you could talk about the last episode of Survivor, and there was a 80% chance that that people knew what you were talking about. You know what I mean? Or like we had so many. We had so many like shared experiences just with random things, a big football
random non-political things.
Yeah, random non-political things. And now I feel like one of our only shared experiences in life is what we're going through with politics. And obviously everyone has different opinions on different sides of the matter, but we all know what's going on. We're all listening to it. So it makes it especially hard with stand-up comedy, where there's this idea that you don't have to explain things when you go on stage. You assume that everything you're talking about is universal, that everybody knows what you're talking about in the room.
Right.
And that's how you're able to make jokes about it. So it's kind of like the go-to for a lot of comics, because they're like, well, I mean, we all know what's going on politically, so I could talk about Trump on stage and people know.
Frame of reference.
Yeah. So it's like there's not many other things out there right now that feels new other than politics. So I think that's why you have so many comics talking about it, and people get tired of it. But comics are sort of like, well, I mean, let's get some other things that we all like and share at the moment, and then you get some new material. Other than that, you can always go back to relationships and things that are kind of will probably always be universal, but it just makes it really hard for comedy right now because we're not doing enough things together.
Interesting point. Well, we're doing coronavirus together. Well,
right. You're going to get a lot of those jokes, guaranteed, because it's another shared moment. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, but it's interesting because there's always this conflict in stand-up comedy, it seems. Although those who perform at the best, one might argue, they make it work for them. There's the observational, which some people, the more hipster crowd and Silver Lake might go, yeah, well, that you're a hack if you do anything observational.
Right.
What's the deal? But then there's the personal, which, like Richard Pryor's possibly the most celebrated, where, he's pulling, he's talking about literally beating his wife and doing these things that, paint him as a rather horrific human being. And it creates this vulnerability with the audience that, allows him to go into a deeper space as an artist that, you just can't do with mere observational. How do you feel about that? Because I see, there's stuff that you acknowledge about how people first, visually take you in and you just grab them by the throat. And that's a very personal thing. And, you do some observational too, but one of the things that just really resonate with me and I really enjoy about your comedy is, you get personal. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I can't speak for all comics here, but at least for me, I never approach it with that in mind, in the sense of like, okay, like I need to be more observational, or I need to be more.
You don't have a spreadsheet or like, well, our levels are.
Well, I do have graphs and strings attached to tacks all over my wall, but
hey, that's Sammy Obeid's thing. He's got math, okay?
yeah, he's very statistical, I'm sure. Maybe he has graphs, but
right. Oh, you know he's got graphs.
yeah, but yeah, it's just sort of one of those things where you go, okay, what's funny to me, and I've always just chased what's funny to me, and you hope other people like it. If they don't, okay, well, I'm not saying that again, or or whatever. But you always, as long as it's funny to me, there's a good chance that it's going to be funny for someone else. So,
and growing up in Fresno, there was like nothing that other people would find funny about that. So how did you? How'd you find a way to, make it work for you?
Yeah, how to make Fresno funny. Yeah,
I feel like it's a T-shirt you should have. How to make Fresno funny.
Yeah, make Fresno funny again. That's
Daniel's got a new type of master class where it's more where you get involved with the teacher, and share your experiences with the teacher, and the teacher helps acknowledge that your experiences might be instructional to other people. But you got to pay me to do that as your teacher.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Fresno is a weird place to grow up in general. I think it's insanely misunderstood, and it honestly is like the perfect recipe to create a comedian, I feel like.
Well, help us out here, because I grew up in Northern California, and of course, I enjoyed some nice produce this morning. I had some heirloom tomatoes in my little breakfast, scrambled egg bowl. And I'm pretty certain those came from, if not Fresno, somewhere along the Central Valley. So I partook of the agricultural, basket that is the Central Valley, including Fresno. But I've been through there once or twice, but I have no idea. So take me to school. Take me to school. What should I know about Fresno?
How long is this podcast? How
could be in multiple parts. We could do a spinoff.
7-part series.
Mark Roman Empire, also a Fresno tutorial.
Yeah. It's just such a weird city. It's the direct center of California, almost exactly. In fact, there's a place on the 99 freeway where there's a palm tree and a sequoia tree next to each other. And it's really subtle. There's no like monument there or anything like that.
Makes sense.
But that's the palm tree represents, this is the start of Southern California. And the sequoia tree, or whatever type of pine tree it is Northern California. And so it's right dead in the center. But yeah, it's definitely this big agricultural place. It's known for farmland. It's known for produce. And yet there's something like 600,000 people that live there, which is really big. Like it's bigger than some states' capital cities.
Yeah, right?
Which is crazy. And so it's like there are a lot of people there. It's this giant suburban area, and there's no. Yes, I guess you could say the market is agriculture, but there's no like industry there other than agriculture, which really, to be honest, is only like a handful of families who own all of that farmland in Fresno. Other than that, it's just like a bunch of suburbs.
It's like every other industry, huh?
Yeah, it's just like every city has their like industry. It's like whether it's factories or we all work at this plant or whatever, where you can move up, and that's sort of the goal. But in Fresno, there's not much. The industry is just sort of like retail and stuff like that. So you get a lot of companies coming. I mean, Fresno, I think we had the most. It was something like the most restaurants and stores per capita than any other city in the U.S. I mean, we had we had something like 6 Targets or something, which is insane. You go to any other city, they have like 1, maybe 2 or 3.
Why do you think that is?
It's a big test market. I know Taco Bell uses it as a test market because it's
really.
Yeah, we're in California. We're close to everybody in Fresno travels a lot.
It's true.
They want to leave Fresno. San Francisco's a 2.5, 3 hour drive. Sacramento's a 3 hour drive. LA's a 3.5 hour drive. So it's all easy day trips. So they've seen a lot of stuff. They've been to the ocean. They've been to the mountains. Those are all close by. Those are all easy day trips. And
interesting.
And so it's like, it's easy to like, I don't know, it sort of represents middle America, but at the same time, they're hip on California stuff. You know, they know what's going on in LA and all that kind of stuff. So it's like a good test for kind of everyone in the US. And there's a lot of crazy people too, but hey, it's Fresno.
Yeah, that's a Fresno thing. There's no crazy people outside of Fresno.
Right. It's only Fresno. They're all every road leads to Fresno, so maybe they're trying to get there in some way. But
right now, brothers, sisters, any siblings?
Yeah. Got a couple of brothers and a sister. So,
and are they? What do they do? Are they in comedy as well? Or are they doing something completely different?
Everybody's doing something completely different. Both one of my brothers owns his own like companies and does a bunch of different. I wouldn't even be able to explain it to you if you told me to. Then another brother does like graphic design and websites and stuff like that. And then my sister is into teaching. So
nice. Now, are they still in Fresno, or have they departed as well?
I'm the only one in LA. Yeah.
Wow, you're the pioneer.
I am.
You went to Long Beach.
Yep, I got out and I stayed out, and I'm the only one. Like I mean, like there's not even. I have an aunt and some cousins who moved to Sacramento, but other than that, like everybody's in Fresno.
Crazy. So what was the motivation? Why'd you leave?
How could I dare leave and never go back?
Right?
I mean, I visit all the time, but it was college was the excuse to get me out. I went to college, graduated from college, and then
what'd you study?
At first, I went there to play jazz guitar.
I got to be honest. My immediate response is that makes sense, and that's awesome because we actually had John Story on the podcast a few episodes ago, and he was the total jazz band guy, and now he plays guitar in Jeff Goldblum and the Mildred Snitzer Orchestra. So
nice.
It worked out for him.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. I don't do that.
So maybe you have a future with Jeff Goldblum, is all I'm saying. I don't know. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, comedy is my day job, and just trying to get this jazz thing to work. Yeah, I went there for that, and then ended up just get a degree in communication studies. It's funny because I was like, I just don't see a future in jazz. I'm going to try stand-up comedy. That seems easier to do.
More stable. Yeah, it's better prospects, Right. It's like plastics in the 60s at the Graduate. Stand-up comedy, that's my plastics. I'm from Fresno. I can get around that. Yeah.
Although it did make it easier, I think, probably for my parents who, you get that classic story of like, oh, they wanted me to be a doctor, but instead I went into comedy. And for me, it was like, well, he was going to get into jazz guitar and now he's doing comedy. So really nothing kind of changed.
Right. What's the difference again?
Yeah. Oh, so, that's what brought me down here. But yeah.
Well, when did you first take a stage, and what moved you to do such an insane, crazy thing like that? Because that's what most people listening right now, they're thinking that. Like, there's people listening to this right now that the very thought of someone suggesting they should go in front of a group of people and say anything,
right? Like
their name, and it literally frightens them to death. Have you ever felt that way?
I mean, I'm sure at one point, yeah. I kind of had a long. I've done a lot of like performing, I guess, throughout my life. I mean, various things. I started playing guitar when I was in 5th grade, and by 8th grade, I had a band, and we performed at our middle school at lunch, and that was definitely nerve-wracking. But that was, that was the start of me like performing in front of people, and I was in a band throughout high school, and we performed a lot. I was in the jazz band playing guitar. We performed a lot there. I So this is gonna sound like these two things aren't related at all, but I promise there's an ending. There's an ending here. So we had something in our high school that was kind of like a daily bulletin, right? And I went to a pretty big high school. There was somewhere between 3,000, 4,000 students there. On the good side of good amount of people that went to the high school. So the daily bulletin was kind of a big deal. Lots of people saw it. And what it was
this a newspaper on an old school paper, or is this?
No, so this was TV. Like, it was a class, and you audition to get in, and you have an anchor partner, and it's just the two of you, and you are at a desk reading the school news every day. And sometimes you'll introduce the principal, and they'll have something to say, or you'll introduce, oh, here's our athlete of the week, and you'll talk about the game that they had, or, you know, why they got chosen as athlete of the week. And it was just kind of like serious, whatever. And there were not many of us. There were, I think, 5 different anchor teams, so 10 of us total, 5 teams of 2.
Gotcha.
It was probably 5 teams. So we rotated every day. So Monday, you were the Monday person. You're the Wednesday person, you know. And I got into that. And that was getting used to being in front of a camera and just sort of saying things in front of people. Until one day, my junior year of high school, one of my good friends, his anchor partner, it's a long story, but he left in the middle of the year.
Oh,
could not. Yeah, left schools. Yeah, so that a hole opened up, and our teacher was like, "Hey, you can't." He was telling my buddy Ryan, like, "You can't be an anchor anymore. There has to be 2 of you. Your buddy left.
Right.
There's only you can't go on by yourself." I don't know why that was a rule, but that was a rule. And so I had been toying
buddy system. It works in swimming. It's clearly going to work in the daily video bulletin at school.
You can't have one person reading the news. That's impossible.
Yeah, it's crazy talk.
Yeah. So I had been toying around with this idea, and I told my teacher one day, I was like, "Hey, what if Ryan takes my anchor partner and I go solo and I do field reporting?"
Uh-oh.
And our teacher was like, "What the hell are you talking about? Like, we read the daily bulletin. What field reporting? And like, how are we going to do that?" And I was like, "Well, I kind of want," and I think I had the Daily Show in my head. I was like, I want to be like the Daily Show, where I want to not actually report on the news. I just want to do, like, it'll feel like the premise will be news, but really it'll turn into like a sketch of some kind. And that was my idea. And our teacher was like, "Look, you can go out and film one of them, and if we'll air one, and if it's funny or if people like it, we'll keep doing it." And so I did, and it was a huge hit. And I became this like sketch guy, basically, doing all the field reporting. And I did that my junior year, my senior year, and I was basically just filming comedy sketches. And
that's amazing.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it was crazy that they let me do that. And the amount of things that I did and got away with on that were just insane, just because I became popular from doing it. I mean, at one point I did a contest where it was like a dating video thing where I had girls send in dating videos, and then I was going to go on a date with them and air it live, like all in character, all a comedy sketch thingy or whatever. And so, yeah, I literally, like, people and some guys too sent in like dating videos, and they were all like funny sketch ones. And,
right.
And then I chose a winner, which ended up being my friend who like did comedy stuff.
It's rigged.
It was totally rigged. And we basically just filmed a sketch where I pulled the old switcheroo and actually chose 2 winners. And I was at a restaurant with 2 different girls going back and forth, and craziness was happening in between. And it was just this wild thing that I can't believe the school let me. Like, we were supposed to be watching the news, and instead we're watching me just be a goofball in front of everyone. But I was doing that at the same time as I was playing jazz guitar, and we were doing performances, live performances. And honestly, I think the performing in front of a live audience with jazz and writing comedy sketches, combining those 2 things, stand-up comedy just made perfect sense.
Sure.
It's a combination of those two things. Yeah, it's comedy, it's writing comedy and performing it in front of a live audience. So it wasn't a very big leap for me.
Sure.
When I first did it. And I first did it just for fun. I had no intention of being a stand-up comic. It was sort of a bucket list thing.
Interesting.
And yeah, it was
but it made the list.
It made the list, and I kept doing it. Screw everything else on the list. Didn't get to any of that, but I did the first thing.
What else was on the list? What else is on the list? Oh, apparently not that important.
But Be a Doctor was on the list. I didn't get to that one.
Oh, okay. Hey, there's still time.
There is.
There's still time, and I feel like there's some people in authority that would be, receptive to whatever qualifications you may choose to submit.
Right. We'll see.
You may have to make some. You may have to make some key decisions and have some allegiances, but it's like it's a price for everything. But
right.
What could go wrong?
Yeah, what could go wrong is the motto for my life. But yeah, I was literally I was driving home a friend and I was ranting about like traffic signs, and my friend was like laughing about it, and she was like, "Who says that?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "What comedian is that from?" And I was like, "I just made that up." And she's like, "You made that up?" And I was like, "Yeah, I was just ranting right now." And she was like, "You've got to try stand-up comedy." And so in Fresno at the time, there were 0 stand-up comedy shows. I'd never been to a live stand-up comedy show. So I only knew Comedy Central. I only knew what was on TV. Mm-hmm. So my first performance ever, I thought stand-up comedy, everyone does an hour. That was my perception, because I'd only ever seen hours.
That's what you saw.
Yeah. So I wrote...
You never saw an open mic on HBO. So
exactly. I didn't even know what that was. So my first performance, I did 45 minutes because I figure, it's about 45 minutes with commercials.
Right.
I did 45 minutes in my friend's backyard, and it was for all friends. And looking back, it's funny because I made my buddies, I was like, "Hey man, would you open and just do like 20 minutes? Just do like 15. Like I'm doing 45. And at the time they were like, "Dude, 15, I don't know if I can do it." I'm like, "What are you talking? I'm doing 45. Like quit complaining, do 15 minutes, which is insane."
Yeah. Oh my God, that's amazing.
And that was my first performance, and I liked it a lot. And I moved to LA like 6 months later, and for college.
Well, it's not only a performance; you're producing. You're like producing, orchestrating this show that you're the star of. But you're grabbing people. You're literally producing a show.
Yeah. And it was a lot of work, but I just thought I was doing it for fun. So it was like, it's fun stuff. It's not real. And then when I moved down here, I met a musician.
I'm not getting credit for this.
Right. Yeah. I know. I was like, I don't care what happens with any of this stuff later. But yeah.
Where that stuff comes from.
Yeah. I moved down here and I met a guy in the dorms who was a really good musician. And I found out about open mics. I didn't even know they existed. And I was like, "Hey man, have you ever performed at an open mic?" And he was like, "No, what's that?" I was like, "Me neither, but here's what it is." And we went together to an open mic. He did music, I did comedy, and that was my first time. Probably 6 to 8 months after moving to LA, and then I just hit it strong. Started performing probably 5 nights a week to start for that first year, and then just ran out the gate hard.
So you already had a lot of tools in your tool belt and a lot of experience of the kinds of things a stand-up comic would need, as far as like writing, being in front of people, performing. Yeah. So when you quote unquote started, that wasn't the beginning point. The beginning point was back in high school,
which is weird.
Or middle school, really.
Yeah, looking back, all that makes sense. But at the time, I wasn't thinking in those ways. It wasn't like, "Oh, I do jazz, therefore performing shouldn't be hard." And it was all just so new to me that it was like, no, I'm doing this for the first time, and this is crazy. And looking back, it was like, yeah, it makes sense that I had already performed and I was already writing comedy. And so, if you're out there listening, and there's probably skills that you have that you don't realize that you have that would be good for comedy or acting or whatever you're trying to do. And I don't think you might not know you even had those skills until you apply it to what you're trying to do.
I remember when I first started doing stand-up, and people would tell me, and I didn't want to hear this, but they'd say, you know, most comedians that are good, I'm like, yeah, I'm in comedy because I want to be a shitty comic, you know, like, of course I want to be good. Okay. Yeah. So the comedians that are good, what about them? Usually it takes about 8 years for them to actually, you know, find their voice and find their funny and translate that to an act they can do in front of audience. So yeah, you're looking about 8 years if you're just getting started. I'm like, I don't want to hear that. But in retrospect, and I kind of took a different path because I started in comedy, but then I got sucked into acting. And then I did this Lieutenant Frank character, which technically isn't comedy, but it's a busking act in front of the public. So I developed some insane improv skills from that. So technically I'm not a stand-up comic at this point, but I have skills where I would have no problem stepping on stage at the Comedy Store and taking a microphone and just, you know, I wouldn't have 10 or 20 or 30 or 60, but I could definitely work the crowd and I'd have some stuff. So how do you feel about that? Do you think it was 8 years for you? And if so, when did that 8 start?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question because it's like you were kind of saying earlier. When do you consider it the beginning? Was it, you know, that first performance I did at middle school at lunchtime? Did that count because I was learning skills, or you know, like learning to write comedy, doing sketches in high school? I mean, in terms of strictly stand-up comedy, I started in 2009. So yeah, it's at this point it's been 11 years. And you get some cool credits. You've won some prizes doing stand-up comedy. You're making your living now. You do commercials where clearly, you know, there's a comedic element to it. And I can see people watching your stand-up and going, oh yeah, let's book them for that. You got representation. So yeah. I mean, it all kind of works together. But I would agree that, you know, it's a general rule that, it takes, 8 to 10 years to make it in comedy. And I'm sure that I mean, that's pretty accurate. Although I will add the footnote that, you know, people do get scared when they hear that 8 to 10 years thingy. I will add the footnote that that doesn't mean you're not having fun for 8 to 10 years. You know, like just because you haven't made it or whatever, it doesn't mean you're going to be miserable until you make it. No, like you might start having fun and doing well on shows after a year. You know, you might not be performing for thousands of people, but, you know, yes, you have to be patient, but...
Or doing your best stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, you do have to be patient, but that doesn't mean you're not going to enjoy yourself for a decade. So that hopefully that doesn't keep people from trying it just because they think, wow, I'm going to be miserable till I make it. That's not true at all.
Are you encouraging people who are thinking about getting involved in stand-up comedy? Like involved. It's like I'm describing stand-up comedy as like a 12-step program or, you know, a multi-level marketing thing or some new religion. Let's get you involved. Time to get involved.
It's comedy life.
Right?
Yeah, no, don't do it.
Yeah, isn't Herbalife's like raising a bunch of they are literally selling junk bonds. I just heard.
Oh, really? I don't know anything about that.
It's crazy
stuff, but it makes sense.
Let's just put it this way: billionaires, instead of solving the coronavirus and finding a cure, they're propping up Herbalife with sketchy money. That's the bottom line. So you know, what could go wrong?
Right? Yeah. It's the world we live in. But, I mean, I don't know. I encourage people, like, if you think, I mean, if you want to try it. I definitely don't have that mindset of like, oh, anyone can do it. Everybody should get out there and try it. No, definitely not. But if you want to try it, try it. Maybe you'll learn that it's not your thing, or maybe you'll learn, you know, like you were saying earlier that like, oh yeah, maybe like now I went into acting instead. And you end up learning skills that like take you in a new path, but you needed to do those skills in order to get there or something. or to meet the right people or to develop a confidence or something. I would say if you want to try it, try it. I mean,
it's not. Well, I mean, there's a wisdom underneath that because if you've ever been to one open mic,
yeah,
the absolute car crash that
right.
can often be. Yeah, so it's like there's some people where you're thinking, just send them an open mic, they'll be good. It'll sort itself out. But then there's other people, and you're like, yeah, they didn't get the message. They just keep coming back to the open mic, and they're I don't know if I don't know if it's a learning experience for them or not. I just feel like, they're just,
Yeah, I mean, those people are definitely out there, and I don't think I don't think you're ever going away. There's people who are like, oh, I'm having fun. I don't care the audience isn't having fun, and it ends up just being brutal for everybody. But
and then they go on to run for higher office, and we have to deal with that. It's like,
and then they are funny.
Yes, but not in the way they intended.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to avoid that, but
you know how to avoid tattoos.
Yeah, this is true that you know of.
Well, I hate tattoos.
Mm.
And for me, maybe it's a generational thing, but I just feel like, I do the checklist. I'm like, okay, am I a pirate? No. Okay. Am I in jail? No. Okay. Am I a sailor? No. All right. So why do I need a tattoo again? It just, and then like, what is it going to be? Is it going to be like, an anchor? No, I'm not a sailor. Is it going to be Mickey Mouse? I don't know. Is it going to be I love mom? I got a complicated relationship with mother, so I don't know about that. So and then that's even before the whole, discussion of like how you're going to get it. Needle? What do you mean needle? Needles? Wait, what? How long?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm like a totally no tattoo guy. They had tattoos during wars and in camps. I'm just saying, like, no, I don't like tattoos,
Yeah. Yeah, it's never been my thing. I mean, it's not a strict like rule for me, I guess. But I don't see myself ever getting one. I mean, I don't think I've ever been confident in a thing that much to have it tattooed on my body. You know what I mean?
It is a commitment.
You sit there going like, I listened to that music 10 years ago. Like, I'm not even confident in my music choices. Like, why would I can only imagine getting something tattooed on myself and being like, why? I don't like that thing anymore. I'm just not, that's not my life. Why did I get that tattooed on me? I saw a girl at a show once, because I have a bit about tattoos, and maybe I'll do some crowd work in the beginning to like get into the bit. And I did that at one show, and this girl, she's like, I got a hamburger on my arm. I was like, oh, let's talk about this. Why do you have a hamburger on your arm?
Yeah,
like,
sure you do.
I got a lot of tattoos, but I order a lot of hamburgers. And so I got tired of telling people what I wanted. So now I just go up there and I go, give me that. And I point to my arm. Yeah, exactly. You're laughing because this should be a bit.
Wow.
It is not. This is this girl's life.
This is her real life. She's dead serious. Like it's practical for her. It makes her life easier. And we're just like, wow.
Yeah.
You're like going, do I have to pay her as a writer in my show? I don't know. That's some pretty good stuff. She seems earnest. So,
It's like, man, I don't see myself ever doing that, getting a hamburger tattoo, but you never know.
I guess that goes to the thing. You probably have gotten this a lot, I imagine, where people go like, how do you come up with your material? Like, where do you find it? And it's like, I don't know. I just wake up, open my eyes, breathe some air, look around, listen.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just, that kind of,
the best,
like I'm stumbling over it,
Yeah, a lot of comedians, I'm sure, get this, is people come up to you after your shows and are like, you gotta use this in your stand-up.
Oh, yeah.
And they try to give you those. One of my
your consultant suddenly,
Yeah. One of my favorites of all time is this lady. I think I was in New Mexico. But anyway, this lady comes up to me right after my set, and she's like, I have a joke for you. You have to use. And I was like headlining, and I was on the road, so I had like merch that I was selling, and people were starting to approach me. So I was like, oh, like, hold on, like, give me a second, like, I gotta
sell t-shirt.
And I thought in my mind, I'm like, okay, if this lady still sticks around till the end of this, then I'll hear what she has to say, because apparently
she's earned it.
So yeah, I was like talking to people, and it, you know, it was probably like 10 minutes or something till I finally got around to talking to this lady, and she was sticking around. So I was like, all right, what's this joke?
On a mission.
She's like, okay, here we go. She's like, okay, so before the show, I went into the ladies' room, and I was using the restroom, and I put down, you know, those toilet seat covers that you put on the toilet. I was like, yeah. She's like, yeah. So I put it on, and it falls in to the toilet. I'm like, uh-huh. She's like, that's it. You got to use that in your act. I'm like, that's your story?
Thank you?
Like, what? What am I even going to, like, what?
Oh, that's the punchline.
Yeah.
It dropped in. That's the punchline. Don't you get it?
And she was just so, and it's one of those things you, like, you almost feel terrible.
Yeah, what do you do?
You feel terrible about yourself, because you're like, this lady loved my act, and
she paid for it,
and then she came up and offered a joke that she thought I should say. So are all my jokes that bad? Like, you know what I mean?
right. Oh my God.
She thought this was the same caliber as what I was saying on stage. So am I that bad? Like, it almost makes you feel terrible about yourself.
I feel like it's a little, in comedy, it's a little like what you see with karaoke. It's like you have someone that loves the art form so much that despite their perhaps lack or limited talent, they want to somehow participate.
Yeah.
And that's their way of expressing their, you know, love and appreciation for the art form. But, you know, then you got to have an awkward moment at your merch table. People like going like, Daniel, hey, can you sign my shirt? Can you sign this, Daniel? And you're like, yeah, no, I'm just waiting for the punchline. Oh, that was the punchline. Oh, yeah, okay.
Right. And that happens all the time. Just people, I got a joke for you. And it's insults usually. It's just like,
what?
Yeah, there was one guy, what did he say exactly? It was
people see you as Don Rickles.
Well, yeah, people would come up and just be like, hey, I got one for you. You're so skinny, you couldn't even lift your groceries. And I'm just like, okay, thank you. Like, I'm just like, you're just insulting me in a way, but hiding it as a joke. I don't know. I just
like, do you see the difference between when I talk about it? When I talk about my mother, it's my mother. I got to talk about my mother.
Right.
You,
yeah. You don't start.
That was a little too subtle for some.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. You get used to it, I guess. But
that's crazy. That's crazy. And apparently, I'm looking at some of the things that we've shared because you know, we met Paul Scally, because at the time in Vegas, he had a show, a Grand Laughs comedy show starring Paul Scally at the Downtown Grand in downtown Las Vegas, and I was like his Ed McMahon sidekick guy.
Nice.
And in fact, when I was when I saw you, I was literally there scouting for comedy talent for the show.
Oh, nice.
Because we book different comedians to perform live. So yeah, so you know Paul, you know Sammy.
Mm-hmm. Obeyed, yeah.
I'm just looking because we have like 108 mutual friends on Facebook, which means one of us, if not both of us, are probably either in comedy or acting.
Yeah. And that probably means that I actually know maybe 3 of them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. There's definitely people on Facebook, especially, where I'm like, how do I know this person? I have no idea. Because it's hard with comedy and you know, I'm sure even with acting or just whatever in entertainment, where you get, you know, just random people who maybe saw a YouTube video or just saw you somewhere adding you. And then you get people you met at shows once, and then you get comics who you perform with once adding you, and then you get friends who you actually know. And so it all, like, you kind of forget over time, like, wait, did I perform with this person? Did I be a fan?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
And then people get offended when they're like, you don't recognize me? I went to your show in Salt Lake City 4 years ago. And you're just like, unless you're like, an entertainer or something constantly posting stuff. And I know that like, oh yeah, this person, like I'm reminded of you every day. Then it's like,
right.
I'm not
Exactly.
gonna remember that you were in the audience and you're just like a regular, like a fan or whatever.
From my busking, I'll have people that have gotten a photo with my Lieutenant Frank in his short shorts and rainbow tactical leg warmers, and they'll come up and they'll go like, "Don't you remember me?" I'm like, just fresh, a few hints maybe. It's been a long day.
Yeah.
Spreading the news, issuing citations, holding a banana. Help out Lieutenant Frank here. Like, yeah, I got that photo with you. It was the Christmas weekend 3 years ago. Don't you remember? I'm like, oh, how could I have forgotten? Right. Yeah. You were that one person who did that one thing that I never do over and over and over again because it's my profession.
Right.
Yes. Totally remember you.
Yeah.
But you're in this weird spot because it's like you get, people that appreciate what you're doing artistically, and they fade you.
Yeah, you don't want to be rude.
Bus, or they pay me to get a tip. So it's like, how do you, whereas if you're on stage and you want to that's could become a joke, but it's like, ooh, ouch,
Yeah.
And it's like, you're punching down at your own audience. It's like, don't do that,
Yeah, probably not a good idea.
Oh, now, you were on the Queen Mary, I understand.
For the
do you have any? Because
what's that?
I had a spooky experience on the Queen Mary. I think anybody's ever been on the Queen Mary had a yes. I was curious what the experience you had.
Did you stay there? Were you on a tour? Did you stay the night?
I was no. I don't believe no. But it was shooting at night. I was actually hired as a model, believe it or not, for this photo shoot. This guy was making a coffee table portrait book of haunted hotels in LA. And so we did one, I think, at the Culver Hotel in downtown Culver City. And then we did one on the Queen Mary, which I saw no poltergeist activity, but the very premise of why I was there was kind of a spooky thing, allegedly.
Do you remember where you were, like in a stairway, in a specific room, or were you guys all over?
Kind of all over, different locations. But it was one of those things where it's like, it definitely has a vibe, you know? And as an actor, having been in a lot of different locations throughout LA, you definitely get a sense of the character and the history of different places. So there's different places have their own vibe, their own mojo. And there was a distinct one on the Queen Mary. And it was kind of like, I feel like I can feel like the deaths, the crimes, the oddities. And I'm a very, I grew up very religious, and that's part of my trauma. So now I'm very skeptical and, agnostic. But I'm open to it. It's just I haven't seen it. The evidence has yet to be documented. But maybe I'll be the one guy that finally gets to see the aliens land. It's I don't know. So I was I'm open to it. But just I don't know. But there's definitely a feel to it. And I feel the fact I didn't stay the night, it's the moment I walked away, something might have happened. Definitely that. So what was your experience? How did you experience it?
Oh, man. So it was kind of cool. I was a theater minor in college, and I needed I needed some random credits, almost extra, not extra credit, but just sort of random class, not anything specific credits. And then
I totally understand. My son Connor's doing that exact thing right now. He could technically graduate from Syracuse with his chemistry degree, but he needs these random classes, so he's going to do another year there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And sometimes you need that. You're just this doesn't go towards my degree, but I just need them to graduate. So I saw this flyer up in the theater department that was work on the Queen Mary for, I don't remember, something like 5 to 7 nights or something like that. You can earn 2 credits, which 2 credits is almost a full class. And I could get it done in less than a month.
In a week.
Like 7. Yeah, in a week, really.
Yeah.
And it was like a fun thing. And then you can earn, it's like, you don't get paid. You're getting credits, but you get like food. And then you can hook up something like, I think I got like 4 tickets a night, every night that I work, to give to friends and stuff like that.
Nice.
So it's like, sweet. This sounds like a lot of fun. So I was, I don't know what you call them, a scary person on that thing, on the fake Halloween haunted maze thing that they have in October. Right. And I had never done anything like that before. So my first night, I knew I'd never been on the Queen Mary, but I knew all the stories. I knew it was supposed to be haunted and that kind of stuff. But I kind of just like, well, I don't know the specific stories. I've never been on the tour, so cool. I'm not gonna learn all that stuff until after, because I don't want to know. And my very first night, they put me next to the pool, the indoor pool room, which now I know is supposed to be the most haunted part of the ship.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was literally the hallway next to it by myself. We were very understaffed. We got used, the like non-paid people were used on a lot of the off nights, the like Tuesday night, Wednesday night things. So that
made it scarier. The production.
Yeah, so that made it scarier because there were less people on the ship, and so you were just by yourself in the Queen Mary, in like the depths of it, for sometimes like up to like 10 minutes at a time, just by yourself in the hallway with creepy music playing and dogs barking for some reason.
A lot of time to wonder what could go wrong.
Yeah. So my very first night, the power went out. Like right when we started, and
Darkness.
It was just pitch black. Like power completely went out. And I was there for maybe 5 minutes. I mean, it felt like 3 hours, but it was like a solid 5 minutes by myself in complete darkness. The Queen Mary.
You're in a contained space. There's no windows or there's no light source.
Yeah, nothing. And absolutely no light source. And I'm like kind of freaking out. I'm like, this is
right. Yeah.
5 minutes feels like hours.
An eternity. Jesus.
And finally I see a flashlight, and it's what we call our maze manager. She's like the supervisor in charge. And she's like, hey, is anybody here? And I'm like, yeah. Hey, I'm here. What's going on? She's like, sorry, power outage. We're working on it. It may be up to like 20 more minutes. And she goes, are you okay staying here? And I was like, no. And she's like, no. She looked at me like I was crazy. She's like, wow. Oh, okay.
It's just absolute darkness on a creepy ship alone.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's
the
all.
problem.
She's like, well, I guess you can come. We have a room that we have like some lanterns and stuff. I guess you can come over here. And I was like, okay, thanks. And she made me feel like I was the biggest
lantern room. What is this, Narnia? Jesus.
I'm behind this veil. No, she was like, yeah, you can come in this room. But she made me feel like I was like the biggest wimp in the world. And then I get to this room, and I kid you not, every person is in there. And I'm like, yeah, I would have been the only.
You're the only wimp. Yeah.
I was like, what are you talking to me like I'm crazy for? I would have been the only one who stayed.
You're the last one. So she's exasperated. She's like, of course, everybody wants to. Can I not just find one person that's willing to be in the creepy ship? It's completely inside in the middle with no light source alone. Right. Where is that person?
So that kind of like that was one of the scariest things that could have happened to me, and it happened to me on day one. So I kind of wasn't as freaked out the rest of the time, because I was like, well, at least I'm not in pitch darkness.
That's a palate cleanser. Yeah.
Well, one of my last nights, one of the actual like creepy stories that I have, it was the only night where I got to work with another person, and it happened to be the one guy I knew. So I was like, this is crazy. They randomly paired us up, and we were creepy clowns. And there was this
what could go wrong?
There was this bridge that went over this giant room at the bottom of the ship. And that was all closed off. Yeah, that was all closed off. And the bridge was like guarded by like a fence, so you couldn't go down in there or anything into this room.
Restricted area.
Yeah, completely restricted area. And it's just like, oh, these two creepy clowns that are on this bridge, and you have to go past this bridge to keep going through the maze. And it was like
I'm creeped out. I'm good. Like I've reached my creep out threshold. Like, all right, no more. I'm good. You got it.
Oh, it gets better. So, it was like a Tuesday night. There was nobody on there. We had probably times of like 20 minutes where there was nobody walking through the maze. So there were times where I was just talking to my buddy, and he was like,
the other creepy clown.
Yeah, and he was like, so have you seen anything on the ship? And I was like, no, but also I don't want to talk about it while we're on the ship.
Right?
I was like, can we not talk about this? And he's like, yeah, I haven't seen anything either. He's like, but I want to.
The dead people are listening to our conversation right now.
Exactly. So I was like, dude, let's not talk about it. And he keeps talking about it. He's like, yeah, I want to see something. He's like, I just want to
take a hint.
He's like, I just want a sign or something. And he yells out. He's like, if there's anyone in here right now, give me a sign.
Oh my God, no.
Dude, what are you doing? And he's like, come on.
Poking the tiger. No, don't
exactly.
do it.
He's like, if anyone's in here, give me a sign. He yells it again. And I'm like, dude. And then finally he yells it really loud a third time. And we just hear, boom. I don't know that it was a metal on metal, just loud slamming noise. And we're on a bridge overlooking the whole room. It's a restricted room and we could see everything. There's no one in there. It freaked us the hell out. We were like, I don't know what that was.
Wow.
But don't ever yell that again. And like, what is going on? And it was really creepy and it creeped me out. And that was kind of that.
Damn.
Well, flash forward maybe a year or two later, and I finally took a tour of the Queen Mary. And I'm on this tour, and everything looks different to me because when I was on it was for the Halloween stuff, so there was decorations everywhere. And so I'm kind of trying to put together like, oh, I think this was that one room, and oh, I think this was this maze. And then we on the tour we get to the boiler room, and our tour guide's like, yeah, this is one of the most haunted parts of the ship. And back when this was a war ship where they had sailors on there, what would happen is if a ship thought it hit something, say like an iceberg or something like that, it would automatically, an alarm would sound and it would automatically shut all the boiler room doors so that water couldn't leak in to these little, I don't know, where the fires were or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was a delay, like something like a 20, 30-second delay when these doors would slam shut. And so sailors would play chicken with it. And they'd jump in and out of the boiler and be like, oh, am I going to get stuck inside? Am I not? And one time, this guy got stuck halfway in and it slammed shut on him. I guess they said it was like 10,000 pounds of pressure.
Wow.
And it just cut him in half. And he died right then and there. And she said, and people to this day say that they can hear the sound of the boiler room door shutting. And I look up, I swear to God, I look up right at that moment when she says that, and I see the bridge, and I'm like, oh my God, this was the room.
Wow.
This was the sound that I heard. It was a slamming on slamming metal sound. And I went white, like chills. Like that freaks me out to this day just thinking about, like, yes, I didn't see anything, but that's just the craziest coincidence.
You heard something. Yeah. Interesting.
Because I don't know what else it could have been, that noise.
Explain that, Pendulette.
So yeah, that's my Queen Mary story. One quick funny story that happened that same night, because it was a dead night, no pun intended. But there was nobody on there.
Right.
At one point, so these maze managers would walk through every like hour or half hour to kind of check on the maze, make sure.
Wait, slow up. Maze managers? Like, do they have business cards that says maze managers on it? Like,
that's what we call them, but they're basically just people who work.
Are they on LinkedIn right now and they got like a deployment history? I was a maze manager on the Queen Mary from.
If anyone needs a maze manager, I have lots of experience. Yeah, I don't know what they do in
It's
February.
a growth industry.
I don't know what they do in March and April every year, but in October they're booked solid.
Wow.
But yeah, every hour or so, it was just a person in a polo shirt, really, and they'd walk around by themselves, and they'd just make sure.
Very special kind of polo shirt, okay? Not just any random polo shirt. Okay?
I'm sure it was the nicest quality polo shirt that the Queen Mary could buy.
Like what Tom Cruise wore in Risky Business, you know?
Exactly.
Oh, wait, that was a button down. You know?
Close enough. But so every hour or so, or 45 minutes, whatever, they'd walk through, make sure everything was fine. And it was kind of a rule that, like, you don't scare the maze managers because they get tired of it and they're not trying to walk through this maze getting people jumping out every 5 seconds. They're just trying to do their job. So you don't scare them. Well, this night was particularly dead, where nobody was coming through. And so I'm talking with my buddy and we're standing on the bridge.
The other creepy clown.
We're talking on the bridge and we both look over because we see somebody coming and it's the dude in a polo shirt. And we're all like, oh, maze manager. So we just go back to talking and we're totally out of character, just like us being people. And the guy's just being really weird. And he just like walks by us and he gives us this strange look. And I turn to him, I'm like, how you doing? And my other buddy's like, yeah, how you doing? And then the guy just like doesn't say anything and he keeps walking and he turns the corner and I look to the other creepy clown and I'm like, that wasn't a maze manager, was it? He goes, I don't think it was. And we realized like
it was a civilian who got lost.
Civilian who had the worst haunted maze experience ever, who walked through and was just like, what are these guys doing? We're just two creepy clowns who just turned to him and were like, hey, how you doing?
The fact that you were out of character and you were so nonchalant and casual probably just insanely heightened the creepiness for that guy.
Right.
Oh, shit. And there's... He thought he just encountered poltergeists that were like on a cigarette break, you know?
Yeah, he probably thought we were genius. He's like, I've never seen anyone do this on a haunted maze before. They're just being natural.
Right. So are dead people technically a part of the union? Like, how does that work? Speaking of union, are you telling us, so you got to be SAG-AFTRA now, right?
I am SAG-E. In that
you got to join, brother. You got to join.
I know. I got one.
We need you.
It was right before the quarantine where I got the notice that if I do one more, I'll be a must join. But kind of stuck right now. So I'm happy for myself that I didn't do it right before the quarantine. But I don't know how I would have known that would happen. But
I'm about to
pick up.
When I get the stimulus check that the IRS assures me was mailed on the 1st of May.
You still haven't got it?
No. I got the letter from the orange one, the orange in chief, that said that, it's coming. So I got that. That's because I'll need to, raise 3 cents on eBay in a decade or two, along with a screen capture of my MySpace on that one particular day.
There was a one particular day for me where everyone on Facebook was like, I got my stimulus check. Like, I don't know what it was, mid-March or something, early April.
Yeah.
Everyone got it on one day, and I hadn't gotten it yet. I have now. But I checked my bank account on that day where everyone's like, yep, I got it. And I look at my bank account. Not only did I not get it, but I got quarterly taxes taken out on that day.
Oh, man.
I was like, I lost money to the's today. Everyone's getting money. Right. And I was like, how come they're so quick to take money out, but they're not quick to give me money?
Right? Exactly. Well, when I do finally get it, for mine, on a Friday, they said, yeah, you qualify. Yeah, you can do direct deposit. Give us your info. Okay, we got your info. Looks good. We'll let you know when we're going to send the direct deposit. I'm like, sweet. Go through the weekend. Monday, it goes, yeah, so we're going to mail you a paper check on the 1st of May. And there's like no way to like appeal it or change it. I'm like, wait, what? And so here it is. Yeah, just still waiting. But when I finally get it, I'm going to pay my union dues. But I know for a fact that I'm not going to get any booked work by the end of the year. So I know for a fact. For me, it's literally like charity cause. It's like, it's my little part I can do in the entertainment business to stand up for workers. And I wish that if I worked at Amazon, I had a union I could join, type of thing. So,
right.
Yeah. So join us, brother. Join us.
Yeah. No,
we need you.
Next on the list. I'm hoping all that stuff picks up acting, because eventually they're going to run out of shows to start streaming. And
right now, I noticed you've been doing a lot of, because I know Sammy Abate, he created this whole KO comedy thing on these Zoom shows, and I see that you've been doing kind of almost every day of the week on a different platform, doing live streaming in the evening. How's that been going for you, and what's the difference, between kind of what we're doing right now, where we're just looking at two little boxes on a screen versus a live audience? What's that been like for you?
Yeah, so I decided, like, the day that it went down from my first day in quarantine, and I was like, okay, I need to figure out what to do. This is going to be a while.
Sure.
Let's figure this out. And I was like, okay, let me create this like sort of one-man show. I needed an excuse to do stand-up, because that's
right.
Yeah, probably the biggest thing that like non-comics.
Heroin. It's our heroin.
Heroin, exactly.
I'm showing Daniel. I'm like trying to find the vein in my forearm there.
Yeah, I keep forgetting, because we're looking at a video. I keep forgetting that people are listening to this, not realizing that you were.
We're doing the same thing we did the last episode, gang. We're recording on Zencaster, which gets high quality audio on our local devices, but we're looking at each other on Facebook Messenger,
so that I can see the heroin act outs.
Yeah, see, right. There's these subtle little visual things that I'm glad I'm doing it now, because before that I wasn't doing the video part, and it really detracts from the conversation,
Yeah. But yeah, I started doing this sort of one-man show as an excuse to do stand-up, because I think the biggest thing that a lot of like non-comics don't realize a lot of the time is that we need practice. You got to practice in front of people. And so I was like, I need that.
That's
practice.
What we do.
Yeah.
Work out new material.
And as long as one person is watching, I'm fine with it.
Right.
And luckily I've been getting a little bit more than one person each time. So that's been nice and helpful. But every night I stream, I do a stand-up set, and then I play games, talk to the audience, do that kind of stuff for an hour. And I've switched it up. So it's twice a week on Facebook, twice on Instagram, twice on YouTube, and then I take one day off, which is what today is. And then I've been doing virtual shows and that kind of stuff, and it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, it's completely different, but it almost gets you to focus more on the words that you're saying, if that makes any sense.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, because when you're in a crowd, you're so not necessarily distracted, but just focused on, are they gonna like the way that I say that, or what I look like, or how I'm acting this out, and you're still kind of doing that on the virtual shows, but people are listening more, and so your jokes almost have to be stronger, I feel like.
Interesting. Now, how do you create? Do you what's your process? Because some people, like, they sit down by a campfire and they write it all out and they rehearse it, and then they say line by line verbatim what they've written. Others, kind of work it out in front of a crowd, like Mark Maron will do that. What's your process? Or is there a combination of it?
I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if I consciously thought of this or not, but I know when I started doing comedy, I had also started taking acting classes and stuff in college. And one of the big things early on in those classes were like the Meisner technique, which I'm definitely not a Meisner expert in any way, but correct me if I'm wrong.
For our listeners, give them a little 101 definition of Meisner.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's essentially that, like, the words aren't important, kind of a thing. That get the words ingrained in your head, and that you almost like would practice things without punctuation, and then when you said them, you were kind of tapping into your unconscious mind, and because the words were ingrained when you're in your brain, that you were becoming the character, and the character was just saying these words that were on their mind, and it would come out the right way or something like that. I could be completely wrong. I don't know. But
I've yet to study any acting, so I just
Yeah, so
I'm not an authority on it.
Yeah, so it's something like that, where just like get the words ingrained in your head and then become the character, and the words will just come out naturally how they're supposed to come out. And I was starting stand-up around the same time, and I kind of had that same process with stand-up where I was like, let me write it all out word for word, and let me get those words ingrained in my head, and then when I go up on stage, I know it'll just be finding the funny. And that those words will come out word for word, and I can focus on how I'm saying it, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, for that reason, I'm very written. I'm like I've gotten good over the years at being able to write how I talk, which is, I know, kind of a tough skill for a lot of people. And I've just done it.
Sounds like it's occurring to you in the moment when you say it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll write out the ums and likes and those kinds of things because I know that that's how I would naturally say it, and try to tighten it up and get it good, and then I'll try it. But yeah, I have kind of a long fermentation process in my jokes where I write like 45 minutes every day, and I'm pretty good about sticking to it. I'll miss like twice a month or something like that. I'll write every day, and I won't necessarily do those jokes that night or anything like that. I mean, most of them are garbage. I'll be lucky if 1 out of 5 jokes is good, you know. And I'll just kind of sit on it. I put them. I have everything categorized by topic, or by bit, and you know, let's say if I have a bit about ghosts, I've got maybe like 15 Word document pages on ghosts. That and I'll highlight the good ones, and I'll look over it later and be like, yeah, that joke still holds up. I wrote it like 3 months ago and I still like it. I think it's funny. I forgot that I wrote it and I still like it. I will do it on stage. And by that time,
it stood the test of time.
Yeah, it stood the test of time, and I'll make sure it's like good and like memorize. And I won't sit there and try to like memorize the jokes per se. What I do is I write them on my computer and I write them in a notebook. So it like writing them twice in a row, it just sort of like ingrains in your head. And if I remember the joke after 3 months of writing it, that means the joke's really good. Because it's funny enough that I remember it.
Right.
So that's my, I guess, process. A lot of writing.
Okay. I can respect that, because for me, I'm still sorting out, because I did a lot of writing as a kid, and different kinds of writing. So like that's a specific, you know, skill set I've developed, you know, over time. But then when I started doing stand-up, that was like a different thing, and I had almost like these 2 different voices. So I've noticed over the past decade, especially with the Lieutenant Frank character, which was totally improv. And then I'd notice stuff that I'd like, and I would just, you know, that would loiter and stick around for the next improv session. And then, you know, there'd be this, you know, these catchphrases and this content that would kind of emerge, but it all came out of strictly an improv scenario with a live audience, just throwing shit out there that occurs to me in the moment in this character. So it's been weird, like trying to, as I'm also thinking, all right, well, when I get more into stand-up again, like what would my stand-up act be? And like, I feel like I got my feet in these different pools, and I'm like trying to corral them together and find, because stand-up comedy, it's a very specific art form. And, you know, like if you write a commercial, or you write a sketch comedy piece, or you write, you know, a sitcom for TV, those are all different forms, and they have like different rules, and there's different things that seem to work, even if you've got the, you know, a similar, you know, voice or, you know, flavor of your comedy or what you perform.
So it's so funny. I was in a couple improv groups for a time, and people would ask that same question all the time. They'd be like, oh, do you feel like it helped you with your stand-up? And I would always, for me personally, I always say no, like they're so different. For me, I've always felt like improv helps acting a lot. But it doesn't necessarily translate to stand-up. I mean, maybe there's definitely some skills that cross over, but it's just such a different muscle, you know? yeah, I think improv more. That's why it's always so funny to me when you get like audition notices or casting things that'll say like, oh, not like must be improv comedian or helpful if you're improv comedian / stand-up comedian.
Right.
And I'm like,
Right.
I think you just mean improv comedian. Like, I don't think you're looking
which
for
one?
stand-up
Make a
comedian.
choice.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
I think improv.
Realize the difference.
Right. Yeah. And then you get to the audition, they're like, no, we don't want you to improvise at all. And you're like, then why were you looking? What?
Do you even know what you're looking for? Well, to be fair, a lot of casting folks don't know what they're looking for. But they'll know it when they see it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I always tell people my very first commercial was for the role of mustache guy. I do not have a mustache.
This is true.
And
you got a little bit of growth, I could see.
A little bit, but I got the part.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how after a while you'll notice how casting sees you? Because it's like, you know, there's a one-off, but like when you keep getting called back for mustache guy, you know, like for me, I'm always like a dad, a cop, a detective, white collar guy, you know.
Yeah.
You start to see a trend. You're like, okay, this is apparently what I am in everyone else's perspective.
Yeah, I always get nerd types because I think it's because I'm like a subtle nerd. Like I'm not like a comical character of a nerd where you're like, oh, he's got glasses with the tape in the middle and a kick me sign on his back. Like I don't look like, you know, a stereotypical cartoony nerd kind of a guy. So they're like, yeah, this guy looks like he's actually a nerd.
You have this mojo that I really dig. That's why I really enjoy having you on here. It's a very low energy, you're just hanging out, you know, dry, just kind of like, you know, one or two words like, oh, that was your choice. Oh, no. Okay. You know, I dig that because it's you know, there's other styles that maybe take a lot of energy, but it's like, you know, you're exhausted and it's like, okay, dude, you're not Robin Williams. You just, you know, you're on cocaine. That's what's going on. So it's like, just, you know, cocaine without the talent.
Yeah.
And for you, just like you can feel that each of your words are carefully selected and they got the maximum bang for the buck. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thanks, man. I mean, that's going back to what you were saying in the beginning of, you know, the 8 to 10 years or whatever to find your voice. I mean, that's really what it is just accepting over time that like, oh, I don't have to be somebody that I'm this person.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Which a lot of comics starting out, that's what they do. They try to emulate their, you know, heroes or whatever. I want to be like Robin Williams. And then they go up and it takes them years to realize like, oh, I'm not.
Who were your guys or gals or more interesting genders that
with it's stand-up, it's funny. I really didn't grow up with much stand-up. I mean, I had Comedy Central was my
The Daily Show.
Yeah, it was
Jon
comedy.
Stewart.
It was comedy shows, like comedy movies, comedy shows, sketch.
Yeah. Okay.
Mad TV. The Simpsons was huge for me. Stuff like that, more than stand-up. I mean, I definitely saw Jim Gaffigan was big for me, especially in high school. Even some,
and he writes. He's the guy that'll sit there and he'll write by the campfire with his wife.
Definitely, he's very, very similar.
Harlan did the same thing.
Yeah, very written. Which, I mean, it's cliche, but it's like there really is. Everybody's different in different ways for everybody. Right. It's just you got to figure out your style or whatever, what works for you. But I had a lot of influences that were not necessarily stand-up related. Looney Tunes, even just movies.
Nice.
Really,
I could see it. Yeah. Well, I think there's an appreciation too for like the physicality of comedy, and if you can combine that with your writing. You know, there's a lot of subtle things. There's like, you know, messages, signals you can send that, you know, they're like tiny little whispers, but like there's enormous power in that. And like you you strike me as the kind of artist that is well versed and very skilled in being able to employ that. It's the subtle details that it's, like Spock's raised eyebrow. It's not much, but you can hear it across the galaxies.
Yeah. Trying.
Now you're doing. Now I see on you do a lot of commercial acting. It's on IMDb, which just looks at the theatrical stuff. Like your top 3 credits, they're actually as a writer. You've got Dead House, Death as We Know It, No Good Burglar.
Yeah, that's funny. I never realized that, but yeah, I have written script things for shows, and it's a lot of fun. I like writing a lot. I kind of feel I'm definitely newer at it than stand up by a lot. So I'm like just getting the hang of all of it, but sometimes you just find those things that you're like, man, I can do this. Like, I know I'm not there yet. I have stuff to learn, but like, I know I can do this. And writing has been one of those things. It makes sense. I mean, like, I write stand-up jokes all the time.
Sure.
It makes sense that once I can figure out, certain formalities with, writing scripts, that it's all just going to come naturally. So yeah, I'm getting there.
And for people that want to hear your comedy, you got a special that came out, last year?
Yeah, that's crazy. It feels like 20 years ago at this point.
But right now, people are sitting around looking for stuff to do. For those that actually aren't, partying all together on Memorial Day, like there's no quarantine or pandemic going on. What could go wrong? Right. So yeah, for people that actually want to stay safe and not kill off Nana with the COVID, how can they deep dive into your comedy, Daniel?
Yeah, so my special DryBar Comedy, you could download the DryBar Comedy app, or I don't want to look on my computer.
Do you have to become a Mormon or a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
It's funny. That is how that company started, but they've distanced themselves apparently. I don't really know. But the point is, now there's a lot of stand-up comics who have done specials or whatever through them, and it turned out great.
Well, it's the same criteria that network TV,
Yeah.
ABC, NBC, CBS, primetime, it's the same criteria. But, when you see DryBar and then you're like, oh, where are these guys? Oh, Provo, Utah. I'm like, okay, well, that suggests a very specific, frame of reference. So.
Yeah, no, it's just like clean comedy or whatever. But I think they're
corporate comedy.
Exactly. Without the tie.
Yeah.
DryBarComedy.com/Daniel. If that doesn't work, it's DryBar.com/Daniel, but I think it's DryBarComedy.com/Daniel.
Well, we'll have links on the episode page for all your stuff, your website, what have you. So we'll get that link too, so
sweet,
people can see it. And then what's coming up next?
I've been working really hard on a second. I recorded a stand-up album just before the special. That's on Sirius XM, Spotify, iTunes, all that kind of stuff. You can also find that on my website. But I told myself that by the end of 2020, which would be 2 years after the first album, that I wanted to record a second one, and I'm almost there. I got about 35-ish minutes, and I think by the end of the year, I'll have, usually the album's around 45 minutes, somewhere around there. So
okay,
I think I'll be ready now. Whether or not the world will be ready to start recording albums and stuff, I don't know. So it may get pushed back, but that's what I'm working on. And just trying to write and do live shows.
Nice. Well, Daniel, I think we did it. I really appreciate it. It's a little deep dive into the world of Daniel. I keep feeling like I'm a character in Ocean's 11 when I say Daniel. You ever thought of yourself as a Danny Ocean type?
No, I don't know what it's just the word Danny too. It's funny. There's I guess nobody really, you don't have any nicknames for Mark.
You're a Daniel. You go with just Daniel.
Yeah. I go by Daniel, although all my social media is Dan Eachus. And I only did that because I was like, Eachus is hard enough. I got to shorten Daniel. And then it just stuck. Like, obviously, social media blew up, and it was like, well, I can't change these things now.
It's been established.
It's been established. So now I'm Dan Eachus on everything. But literally, no one calls me Dan. There's like maybe 4 people, and I never say anything because I'm like, I don't really care. They want to call me Dan. That's fine. And I got a couple people who call me Danny, but I don't know.
Oh, Danny boy. Yeah. Outside of St. Patrick's Day. No, you are definitely a Daniel. I like that about you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good talk, Daniel Eachus. Daniel Eachus, everyone. It's got to be cool to start doing what you love to do, like as a kid, and then into high school, and then you're already doing like, look at this. Daniel was literally, he was writing, he was producing in middle school. It's amazing. Oh, man. All those wasted decades I had. Anyway, I'm so happy to see him doing his thing. Really funny dude. You can hear his stand-up album, Carry the Pillows, on Sirius XM, which I believe they're doing a little freebie thing, or they had been doing a freebie thing during the pandemic. But a lot of cool reasons to have Sirius anyway. I'm not paid by Sirius to say that. I'm just saying if you want to hear Daniel's stand-up album, it is on Sirius XM. Carry the Pillows is the album. It's also on Spotify, iTunes, and Pandora. You can watch him on his DryBar comedy special, A Mild and Skinny Guy. That's available now, too. Check out DryBar Comedy now that you know what it is. Oh, can't wait to hike Runyon tomorrow. Can I tell you? I'm missing that. Oh, I need to get the gym back, too. That's going to take some time. I got to figure things out. I'm recalibrating, as it were. People have rallied, resources have lined up. I'm aware that I got a month or 2 here, then I got to pivot hard because there's going to be no more busking. Might be a little bit. There's definitely going to be no more background acting. So, I'm doing my thing, doing a little bit, building the empire, pebble by pebble, brick by brick, day by day. So I'm encouraged, and I'm encouraged as well that I've got the breathing room to financially and also mentally to do that. And I recognize there's a lot of people that don't have that. So that's why we do Hero Tier. That's why I watch the news. I encourage you, if, the Daily Show's your news source, you got one place that's your news source. I broaden your news sources. I listen to a ton of different viewpoints, perspectives, sources. Just, diversify that shit. It helps, and just to ask yourself, hey, what if I was the person that was going through what I'm witnessing right now? Put yourself in the golden retriever's shoes or paws, okay? All right? That's all I'm asking, just a little bit. Can we think outside of ourselves a little bit? There's a lot of really cool people out there that maybe they have a cure for the common cold, but you're too busy being racist against them, so they might not survive to actually heal your cold, So just, it's a way of being selfish, is what I'm trying to say, okay? If you want to be ingeniously selfish, you got to help other people first. I know it's weird, doesn't make sense. Just trust me on this one, okay? Hey, any links to stuff mentioned on the show at markromanempire.com. If you'd like more podcasts, support it. Our mojo may not involve much advertising, so your Venmo, Cash App, or even PayPal truly helps. markromanempire.com. Click tip jar. On SoundCloud, there's a link to my Venmo there as well. So look for the blue Support Mark Roman Empire button. And of course, we have Patreon, patreon.com/Mark Roman Empire for lots of cool perks with more on the way. Thanks to our listeners, usually across the globe, but I think it's just across the fruited plain this past week, which is cool. I see you, Oakland, Beverly Hills, Newark. We all know Newark's in New Jersey, so I don't have to say it's in New Jersey. But for the one person that has no idea where Newark is, okay, maybe that's all right. Look at, you know what I just did? I thought, there's someone living in Bangladesh right now or Berlin, and they're like, Maraka, do not know this. I don't know why I'm making them sound like Apu from The Simpsons now, which apparently is a bad thing. You can't be Apu on The Simpsons, especially when you're a 6 foot tall white guy like me. Definitely not. Definitely don't want to do that. So anyway, are we okay? Newark's in New Jersey. Are you a hero tier? I'm just asking because we've been helping house Venka and Will since December 2019, and we've been helping creatives since St. Patrick's Eve 2020. We need 3,000 hero tiers to ensure housing security for Venka, Will, and their puppy Andy. Leave no human outside. Also, only hero tiers can win cool prizes in the weekly Cards for Hero Tiers game. That kind of reminds me of which song is that? The Peter Gabriel song? Games without frontiers, doors without King Lear's? Is that it? And you wonder how music lyrics get so horribly misheard. That is an example right there. Hey, leave no human outside. Leave no human outside. Leave my bad recollection of Peter Gabriel lyrics. Leave that like in the dustbin of history. Just let's forget it, okay? But, on the YouTube channel, Mark Roman Empire, you can find, because suddenly I'm Yoda now. On YouTube, you can watch Cards for Hero Tiers 13 on Monday and find out who wins the surprise prize during Cards for Hero Tiers, Doors Without Ears. I don't know. I just you hear something different each time you listen to the song, maybe. I don't know. What song is that? It's bugging me. If only I had a device where I could look this up. Anyway, during Cards for Hero Tiers, we also tease the next episode of the podcast, which drops on Wednesdays most weeks, okay? We've found 51 hero tiers since December. Who's next? Whether you need help or can offer help or are just curious, visit herotier.org to discover more. And you can listen to the podcast on many platforms. Don't forget to rate and review us on the one you're using, whether you hear us on Apple Podcasts, Mixcloud, Podbean, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and TuneIn, or in one of the several apps like CastBox or Overcast. Leave a review, rate us. Also, Pocket Casts, that's what I use to hear my pods. And on YouTube, we do have podcast audio as well as interview wrap teasers and Cards for Hero Tiers videos. Also, we've got Church, Lieutenant Frank, and Cue Ball Hot Takes videos. MarkRomanEmpire.com. Click listen for all those links. And to avoid missing out on cool, groovy, delicious stuff, join my mailing list, the Mark Roman Empire Census. Sometimes we have special deals and perks for podcast citizens. By the way, this week's Sermo Maximus, for anyone who wants to partake of that, one day someone will. This week's Sermo Maximus is Runyon Open. Check your email for this episode census, but only if you want to win a cool prize to be drawn in next week's Cards for Hero Tiers. Didn't get the census email? Become a citizen. Go to markromanempire.com, click census. Twitter at @TheMarkRoman, Instagram at Mark Roman Empire for the podcast, at Vegas 90210, like the Tory spelling vehicle, for Lieutenant Frank and the other characters. Email your questions to me at romanpodmail@gmail.com. Maybe if I said the email correctly, we'd actually get them. We haven't in the last few weeks, but if you send it today, I didn't check it today, so maybe that's going to spill over into next week. But if you got questions, you can email me at romanpodmail@gmail.com, and I might answer them on the podcast. Let's just see what happens, romanpodmail@gmail.com. Oh boy. Oh, Boise. Well, I guess it's summertime because we had Memorial Day. Look, can you just wear your mask, please? Okay. I know it's not an N95. I know it's not protecting 100%, but it's something. Okay. It's not that. Just someone's grandmother is going to thank you. Just wear your mask. Wear your mask. Okay. Just wear it. And 6 feet distancing. Okay. All right. Just, can we do that a little bit, please? Oh boy. I need to, you know what? A hike running, it'll feel a whole lot better. And until next week, it takes a busker. Remember our fallen buskers, Clownelyn Monroe, Prince St. Paul, Christopher Dennis, and Alexander Desser. No fear, here or tear. I am the Mark Roman. I am mentally ill. How can I help?